My name is Adrian Nantchev, and this channel is all about helping you become a remarkable entrepreneur. So you see, that's why I started this podcast, to bring you people from all over the world, whether entrepreneurs or not, to share with you their story, their journey, who they are, but most importantly, why they're doing what they're doing. Today I have with me Ryan Vinson, all the way from LA, to talk about music, software development, maybe some bubbles, and so much more. So please, Ryan, tell the world, reassure the world, enlighten the world. Who are you? What's your story? And why are you doing what you're doing? Please.
Wow, that's a good question. So I started out way back the 90s when the internet first just got started. The internet was pretty new to everybody. I'm from a very small town in the Midwest, 1,100 people. And chances of me ever moving away were very slim. So I just dove myself into software at a very young age and just hit it as hard as I could. I learned so many things so fast that once websites started existing to try to find jobs, I used those to get myself out there to, try to pretty much travel the world, try to see things, try to learn things that I probably would have never gotten to do if the times were different. So along the way, I worked for various .coms, and the internet just kept growing and growing. However, the late 90s hit, and then suddenly, boom, we hit into a bubble. Companies started dying left and right. And the more it happened, the more I could see that the writing was on the wall. I had to do something else. I had to change something, or I'm going to be hopping jobs. Because if I didn't, I never know next week where my job's going to be, where my income's going to come from. So along the way, I decided, why don't I start my own business as a freelancer, as an independent? Because so many of these companies I'd worked with in the past was contacting me, asking me to work on the side. Hey, can you work at this at night? Can you do this, do that? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to start doing this as my full-time job because I never know next week what's going to happen. And I started thinking about that. And then lo and behold, 2001, 9/11, some things happened. I got laid off anyway. So then that pretty much forced me to become an independent, forced me to become a freelancer. And I started really working hard to try to find clients. In those early days, it's rough, really rough to try to find people to work with. Try to get someone to be convinced to work with you and nobody, one person shop. Who wants to work with you when they can work with a full business somewhere? So I had to try to be everything. I had to try to wear all the hats. So somewhere along the line, I said, you know what, I'm going to move back to LA. One of the startups I'd worked with at some point had me out here. I said, I'm going to move back to LA. At least there, it's sunny, it's nice. Hey, if I'm broke, at least I got, something nice around me to look at. I moved out here, started finding a lot of clients in the entertainment industry, the film industry, the music industry, and so on. And I started seeing a reoccurring theme with these guys. One would complain about needing the other too often. A filmmaker really needed some good music for their film, but yet they didn't really want to pay the $40,000 to $50,000 licenses for some famous song by, say, Aerosmith or somebody. In the end, they didn't know what to do. So I started thinking about it. I had musicians who were also looking for opportunities to get themselves in film. So I decided, hey, why don't I come up with a concept, kind of a matchmaking site, if you will, that basically allows these filmmakers to describe what they're looking for. Let the musicians sign up to it and kind of describe themselves, tag what kind of music they play, and so on. And then pretty much connect these two, connect the ones looking for the other, and then just get out of the way. I don't take licensing fees. I don't do anything with it as far as that goes. I'm just strictly membership-based service. So I let them decide how much they're going to pay each other, what's going to happen in the process. Hey, I need a composer. This is the style of music I need. This is the details, for how many months until the film's released. Is there going to be pay? Is there deferred pay? etc. And then I let them just handle it from there. And this is circa 2002, I believe, is when I first started it, this portion of it anyway. And it grew pretty fast. I got to speak at a lot of events, got to do some film festivals, got to do some cool stuff. And it was always pretty cool to see the end credits when somebody thanked my company along the way as well. So, all along this time period, I'm kind of moonlighting doing this. And at the same time, I'm still running my software business with clients who are needing me to write various types of software, for whatever it is. I kind of one of those jack of all trades types, if you give me a new language, whatever it is at that moment, if I don't know it, I'll pick it up, give me a week or two, we'll get rolling on whatever it is you need. So I continued that for several years, pretty much dueling both of those. And until 2016, I finally decided to rebrand. The film site itself was always called VersusMedia's Film Music Agent. So what I decided, why don't I split that off, give it its own domain, and then I can just start using VersusMedia strictly for what I consider my entertainment side of the business. Let me start licensing films of my own from a number of these filmmakers I'm helping and get them in front of an audience, say in England, somewhere else that they're not really used to, getting themselves in front of. So I created a Roku channel, the Apple TV channels, etc., because there are just so many options out there anymore for these people. There is so many other channels and other ways. I mean, YouTube, a lot of these people can go on YouTube and just, search out somebody's film and possibly watch it, or maybe even Amazon. Amazon's channel allows any filmmaker to upload their film, and hopefully somebody will notice it on there, but there's millions upon millions of films on there. I figured at least if I have a select group of films that I rotate over time, I can at least, focus on these select filmmakers, get them some attention, and then next year I'll focus on a different set of filmmakers and so on, with the smaller group of people are using my channel rather than someone on Amazon trying to, hopefully they'll find your one film. So that was 2016. I launched all these various cord cutting channels. I started trying to get some of the musicians as well. I have a whole section of music videos that I have on there as well. There's just thousands upon thousands of music videos out there. Unfortunately, I can't show them all. I get a lot of people submitting those every day, it seems like, but there's only so many. And it's crazy because music videos in itself are really just short films anymore. They're just so well produced. There's so much, colors and just, it's, good camera work, because cameras are so cheap as opposed to the old days. So, in the old days, a music video was just some guys on stage dancing around usually, and that was it. Nowadays, you've got, 5 minutes and it's its own short film in itself. So, and that's, in a way, I ended up devoting an entire channel just to the music videos because there were so many of them that I couldn't say no to. So, somewhere along the line, I had always had people come to me about my small business, and freelancing and etc. And it just became kind of tedious to always, when these people would ask me questions, how did you start it? How did you survive? I mean, you survived the bubble, you survived the .com bubble, you survived this bubble, you survived all these little things. And I decided, maybe I should write this down. Maybe I should create a blog post, something, bullet list even, just something to kind of show these are the important points I learned along the way to run a business. These are the things, if you're a small business guy, in my case, I'm a one-person show. I hire people per need basis. When the project ends, the contract ends, whatever, then they're no longer working with me. I hire back a lot of people over time, but in the end, it's just me running my own business. And trying to survive doing that can be rough for some people. They get distracted. Television's on, whatever is going on. They want to go out partying. And like when I used to go to film festivals a lot, I'd be out till 2 or 3 in the morning partying with filmmakers, and then I'd be up, 8 a.m. next morning writing software again. So I decided maybe I should put that together in a blog post. And the more I started writing it, the more I realized, gosh, there's just so much more I want to say. It's just not a paragraph about each bullet point. And then suddenly each point became a chapter, and then some of those became 2 chapters, and so on. So eventually, at the beginning of this year, I did release a book about the first 15 years of me being a freelance software developer and business owner. And I put that on Amazon, and it did pretty well. I mean, I'm no famous bestseller, so it's not going to sell that many, but it was pretty cool to hear some feedback from people. and to get some ideas, kind of thank yous for giving them tips on how to start a business, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what things they should not do, definitely. So there's just so much out there, so much to do, so much to see. And as you can tell, I love to talk about it because there's just so much to learn in the world.
That's all right. There's always you don't know what you don't know. Always be curious. Always be learning.
I can't stop.
That's all right. Learning or talking?
Yeah, both. Well, I think definitely learning, number one. Once I learn it, then I want to talk about it. That's how it works, right?
I like to. It's like I used to learn a lot, still do. And a few years ago, I spent so much time learning, just out of curiosity, economics and finance, and I started to think, is this a weakness? Just being curious, just learning and learning and learning. I'm dedicated so much time to this.
Yes.
It must be a weakness, but no, it's the greatest strength. Auto-dictatism, very powerful stuff. And I'm thinking of dabbling a little bit into criminology, just to explore. Oh, really? Just to explore, just the psychology of it and the techniques and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just very curious about it. But, And
I agree, because at certain points you learn a little bit about so many topics, you never become an expert of any of them. And if you spend a little bit of time on one and then move on to the next one and move on to the next one, you're not ever really becoming an advanced knowledge person on one topic. So, well,
I see your point, but at the same time, I want to be like a Renaissance man, where I can, like this podcast, I can just tell me what you're on about generally, and it's like, okay, all these topics and ideas and conversations to have, and it's just like a social chameleon, and just enter the room and just talk to people about all sorts of interesting, fascinating stuff. And I'm sure you might have heard this before. Like I recently discovered the secretary problem, a little bit of thing in mathematics and game theory. And it's like an interesting little mathematics and decision making and heuristics. Interesting. So I just want to go back a little bit though, because you mentioned chapters in the book, and I've noticed when writing books, when you just start writing, you just get more and more ideas. It just flows down. And I'm planning to write another book, all to do with psychology and mindset. And it's like every now and then I'll get a new chapter, a new concept, or just write it down quick before I forget. And it's like, there you go. That'll add an extra 10 or so pages or 5 or so pages to the book. How cool is that?
I'm on the 10-year plan, I guess. I seem to write one every 10 years. I don't know. Hopefully I'll do it sooner than that. But when I was in the early stages of the film music website building, and I'd started really going to festivals, talking to people, I wrote a book basically for the musicians to something to kind of help them get themselves out there, how to find filmmakers looking for opportunities, looking for the filmmakers, how to go to festivals, talk to them, kind of the how to work the room concept, how to meet people, how to get yourself involved in one film that leads you into another film, and so on. And the internet has definitely come a long way since I wrote that one, that's for sure. There weren't as many places you could go to hunt down filmmakers as you can now, but it was an ebook, and it did pretty well back in those days. It's still out there on Amazon, I believe, but it's well past its time frame, that's for sure.
Needs updated. You've learned stuff since then.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, you mentioned the music videos. Mm-hmm. Is the business model essentially like Vivo, or is it a little different?
For me, you mean as far as my channel?
Yeah.
Vivo, I believe, I'm not sure if they pay them for their music videos. I don't know how that works on their end, but mine is open-ended contracts. They're able to push them anywhere else. So, more than likely they may have it on Vivo if Vivo allows them. Some of those people are in contracts where they're prohibited from putting it anywhere else. But I have a concept that I feel like I don't want to prohibit any of these independent artists from, being able to put it anywhere else. If they want to put it on their own website, YouTube channel, etc., or maybe even another Roku channel, maybe another, Apple TV channel, whatever, go for it. So in my case, it's strictly just submit your videos. If it's approved, then I'll put it on my channel. We'll sign some contracts, we'll do the basics, and then I'll have it up there for you to hopefully somebody will watch it.
Approved. What's your criteria?
I guess it's that's a hard one to say. It's really a matter of eyeballing it, and if it looks like it's a good production, I don't really want somebody with their camcorder, that's the audio is very terrible, and it doesn't look like they tried very hard at it. I mean, that's really.
Well. Would you have approved Psy's Gangnam Style?
I would actually.
Right. Okay.
Just because one, I do a lot of international travel, so I get where the excitement for that video came from. But at the same time, it was well produced. I mean, he's a funny dude. He had some pretty girls in it. They're all dancing around, acting silly. I mean, it's got all the elements that even a short film should have in it in order to get some clicks, some views. So.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And speaking international travel, in LA. I heard that the culture in LA, in terms of social media or, I don't know, attitudes, people that are a lot more collaborative than in London or in Europe. They get it more, and they're more willing to work together and build a subscriber count or a follower count. So that kind of sense that you feel and detect.
That LA is more of a collaborative place?
Yeah.
I would say yes, just because a lot of people still have that belief that, movies have taught us for years here in the U.S. that head west, you want to be a movie star, hop in your car, drive to the West Coast, drive up and down Sunset Strip, and you'll get famous. So a lot of people move here, and I feel like the film industry kind of has that feeling with each other that, look, none of us are going to succeed on our own. We almost have to be one big social circle. And I have a number of friends that they work on each other's little indie films. It's all under the table, non-SAG, non-union based, anything like that. It's really just a means to the end to get them more work, more practice. And each time they do it, maybe they meet somebody new that they didn't work with on their previous set. And suddenly, maybe that person can then get them a gig on something else. And so it ends up being one chain of just a big social circle, the whole, everybody, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, I mean, somebody out there has got to have, friends with Kevin Bacon, not me, but, somebody out there has to. So LA definitely has that sense, but there is also a very sad side to LA, is that a lot of them do move here and feel that, they're going to be the ones to get the lottery ticket. They're the ones who's going to succeed. And we get a lot of homeless people here. I can tell that we're probably ones who came here to become actors or to become, well-known musicians and such. And this town does have a sense of pay to play. If you're a musician, you want to go play a gig, you're going to have to, if you want to go play a concert in LA, a lot of times you have to pay money. You don't get the other way around. They don't book you and pay you. You pay them to get it and get in there. It's not really until you get more famous do they start paying you. And I think a lot of people have that problem. They come here hoping that, they'll get that lottery ticket, and it doesn't work out. So then they end up having to backtrack, and then they start networking with each other. They start working, trying to get that angle, whatever it may be, to get them more well known. And I think maybe that's the birth of how some of these social circles you're talking about happen. Because in LA, it's really not how good you are, it's who you know. I mean, I've done a number of events that, I've sat and listened to some amazing music, and these people ask me, how can I get this in film? And I kind of get bummed out because I knew their music's amazing. It's some awesome songs. It would be great in a horror movie or something, but yet, they don't know anybody. They don't know the right person.
And that's where your business comes into
That's where my business, came in, because I wanted them to help them get those connections. So, if I'm out networking with these filmmakers, going to the events, at least I can then help them come to my site, and maybe I can be the middleman who help connect them. But I also always tell these musicians, look, when you get placed in a film that I've helped with, go to the premiere, go to the, even if it's 2 states away or something, try to get yourself there and go hang out with the filmmakers that you helped, put music in, because they may have friends hanging out there that need music, and so on. You never know. You never know who you're going to run into at these things. And if you sit at your house, hide out, cry, you're never going to succeed. So you have to put yourself forward. And, if you're a shy person, you don't like talking to people, you got to get over it or your business won't succeed.
Oh yeah, you never know who's watching, as I said. You never know who's watching.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize that it's not necessarily who you know, it's who knows you.
Yeah. Yes.
Extra advantage there, extra way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that phrase, that concept of go west, is still quite accurate. Because I've noticed that if you look at the international date line going west from China to the Middle East to Europe, generally speaking, the further west you are, generally speaking, the better off you are. Look at East Coast versus West Coast of the States. Mostly, I don't know the demographics exactly, but I think the West Coast is a bit more favourable than the East Coast. The only thing that got caveat against the West Coast is that it's due for another earthquake. It's San Andreas' fault, but that's really it.
Hey, if it happens during this interview, it'll be great. We'll get it on get it on video. The film industry. I've lived here nearly 20, not quite 20 years yet, but it has changed a lot here since then because it has continued to be split apart and moved actually east. We had a period of time when, say, North Vancouver, British Columbia, that was starting to get a lot of the film industry. A lot of the jobs were leaving LA, and a lot of the filmmakers who were here were having problems finding jobs because a lot of them were moving to, say, Vancouver. But then I think Vancouver fell out, and we started getting a lot of tax incentives in the US and other states. I think Louisiana was one of the first ones that really hit a good tax incentive to give filmmakers, like the big major studios, start doing films there. And it seemed for a while Louisiana was the state that you started seeing a lot of films being filmed in. But recently, it seems like in the past few years, all the Marvel movies, all the Walking Dead, a lot of those TV shows, they're all using Georgia. Atlanta, just around the Atlanta, Georgia area in the south of the U.S. is where a lot of the filmmaking industry has moved. I mean, we still got a lot here. I mean, I can drive down the street in a matter of half an hour. I'm sure I can find at least a few movie sets going on. But at the same time, it seems like they've moved them East Coast quite a bit. It's actually kind of reversed because I guess Georgia had a really good tax incentive plan for a while. So
I'm just curious then, because you mentioned the film industry.
Yeah.
The things happening with Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, and C.K. Lewis, and beyond. What's your thoughts on all that controversy, the scandal?
I mean, as someone who's been here for a while, like I said, nearly 20 years, a lot of these names that have been mentioned, I've heard those names over time from friends of friends of friends, not even female friends, but even male friends that, working on film sets. Half these stories I always just kind of heard and just one ear and out the other ear. But, you always heard these stories about these guys who had little weird, quirks about them, or, the little whispers about them doing some of these things that, we're now privy to. And most of us just kind of, it's not like I'm anybody. It's not like I can say anything either. So, we just kind of hear it and say, well, they're rich and famous. I guess they get to do what they want. And we just kind of move on from it. So to a lot of us here in LA, a lot of these weren't surprises. It's just nobody was doing anything, unfortunately. I mean, I'm all for innocent until proven guilty, but most of these stories were pretty quick to have, quite a few pretty positive, stories to back them up, proof that these things were happening. I mean, anybody can come out and say anything about anybody, and then, if you don't have proof for it, then what does it matter? But one lady comes out and says it okay, but then suddenly 10 others come out right afterwards and say, oh yeah, he did it to me too. I don't personally notice any of, big difference out here myself. I mean, I'm not deep in any of the studios, but the news channels all out here, and we've had a few of our, local news anchors and stuff talk about their own versions of the stories dealing with these guys who have done things to them. So you kind of wonder why something in there somewhere, nobody would speak up. Nobody would even stand up for the women that would have the problems with it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. No guy who was a friend of these girls ever spoke up for them, and nobody who were friends with the executives who knew they were doing it spoke up for them either. So why did it take this long? I don't know. But with the internet, it's much easier now to spread things faster. You can't just cover it up. It's out there. It's to you guys in England within a matter of minutes. We can't cover anything up anymore. So
yeah, it reminds me of that old saying where bad news travels halfway across the world before good news has a chance to put its shoes on.
Yeah.
Just reminds me of that. And speaking of that, actually, I'm very curious. Earlier, you mentioned international travel.
Yes.
Why do you think traveling is important?
Well, for me personally, I've always, since I was a little boy, I've always just had a very, very big lust to travel, to see the world. In fact, when I was a little boy, I really wanted to be an anthropologist. I really just wanted to study other cultures, see the world, study people in little tribes in the middle of nowhere, learn other languages in the process. Go ahead. Seems like you're about to ask me something.
I just thought of something. You mentioned these small tribes in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Recently, I was thinking, just surreptitiously, that aliens, right? Maybe there are other aliens out there, other civilizations, for example, doing all sorts of things, and they see Earth as like a nature reserve, for example, like how we see these small tribes in the middle of Amazonia, in the Amazon. It's like, whatever, just leave them alone. Maybe it's the same with Earth,
Yeah.
But why not just leave them alone? Just over there in the corner, just leave them alone. I just thought about that when you mentioned anthropology and the tribes. That's like,
I mean, there's a chance aliens see us. They don't quite know what to do with us yet, so they're just kind of watching and figuring out, what's next. Maybe they just got some popcorn. They're getting more interested in what's going on in the world these days because we're getting a lot of hotbeds of tension around the world. I mean, I've been doing a lot of international travel, and I mean, around the world, it seems like there's more strife, there's more things happening. I mean, North Korea keeps popping up with us in the U.S. I mean, they keep shooting their missiles, and Cambodia actually just dissolved their second party. They pretty much continue to keep their people with one guy for the past 30 plus years. So,
as I remember it, that since the 1st of September, Americans are allowed to go to North Korea now.
I believe, it's finally been blocked off. I mean, from what I understood, because there was a time and a place I did consider it'd be kind of interesting to do that one, though. You cross that border, you look at somebody wrong, you're in jail, and something crazy happens. But I hear you're led through a very, very specific route. They show you very specific things, and then you're taken back to your hotel anyway. You don't really get.
No, it's very strict. You have to go. You can only enter through Beijing, and there's the tour. It's a guided tour, really. There's like a tour guide for the entire time you're there.
Yeah.
Like coaches at 4 a.m. You can travel for like 7 hours to see a dam on the side of the country. It's like, here's this water, here's a river, here's a dam. Cool. Let's go back to the hotel.
Right.
There's karaoke.
Yeah.
And then the next day. And I remember also that as you enter the country, you have to bow to the statue of the previous leaders, and you're never allowed to have your back to them. And if you ever take a picture, you can't have part of the statue cut off in the photo. It has to be the full statue or not the statue at all.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Have you been?
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if maybe you got to go. I mean, I don't think you guys are restricted in England, but
it's just logistics. Logistics.
Yeah.
But never been to Asia, so that's the times. The furthest west. Okay. Also, the furthest west in the States I've been is Concord, Massachusetts.
Oh well, yeah, that's not really west. So
not at all. Not at all. So, although I've been to DC, but that's still on the coast roughly. But that's really it. So I did do some research into it, but it's like, why not?
Yeah.
Not a priority, but
it's, in general, it seems international travel right now is a little more difficult. You have to be a little more cautious of what you do, what you say. My thing is I don't ever want to stand out in a crowd. You don't want to be the guy who, wears the flamboyant colors. You don't want to be the one who wears the wrong clothes to a monument or something, because you end up, you could cause the wrong person to look at you the wrong way, and then something crazy happens or you get thrown in jail. Or I like to blend in. I think that comes from my youth of, like I said, I wanting to study these cultures. I was more of I wanted to study them and just be part of them. I didn't want to stand out on the side, with a microscope looking at them. I wanted to kind of interact with them, which is partly why I enjoy solo traveling myself on my own for that reason, because I actually the tourist spots are great, but I like to interject myself into situations where I'm just around people, the everyday people. I'm seeing the life they live, not that little, the famous things only, and all the kitschy shops and everything. I like to see the normal stuff. So those are important to me.
I have heard that in a riot, it's actually very safe because everyone is so fixated on just, I don't know, punching or whatever around that you can just walk right through it and they don't really look at you or something, or some psychology where they ignore you or something.
I'll let you see that one, and let me know if it works out for you.
Why not?
Yeah, I've never been I don't think I've been that close. I've been near some rioting. When I first moved here to LA, we had our the Democratic convention that year for the election. I think it was the year Al Gore lost by a hair to George Bush the second, the son. That downtown LA kind of had some riots that year. And I remember the company I worked for at the time, I'd set up a bunch of webcams for them on tops of buildings and things. And I got stuck on one of the buildings during one of the riots, but I wasn't in any danger or anything. So I can't really say, I survived a riot.
Yeah, there was some calculator problems in Florida, something like that, at least.
Yeah,
some problem with counting.
Yeah.
But you say that international travel
yes.
is risky these days, but 100 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, even in the future, 20, 50, 100, it's going to be the same, isn't it? It's just relative to the situation, the time, and technology.
I think it's amply. I think some of the hatred towards Americans, especially, I don't know. I mean, there is some weird hatred these days towards some of us that I think it's a little more noticeable than it used to be. But at the same time, it's a give and take because, oh my gosh, me traveling now, I can use the internet, study the crap out of where I want to go, have such an awesome laid out plan for where am I going to, I can book my hotel before I even leave, the States. I can have it all ready to go. And then when I get there, get a SIM card in your cell phone or buy a cheap cell phone or something. And then you're able to use whatever mapping program, Google Maps, whichever one is available to you to get to where you want to go. I mean, think about that. The old days, you just kind of had to wander around and use, paper maps to figure out where you're going to go. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, I can even use it to find bus, what bus I need to get on, where the bus station is, all these details we didn't have years ago. So one hand, it's much easier, but on the other hand, you just have to be cautious, and it won't stop me. None of this that's happening these days is going to stop me from traveling. I'm mindful of situations, and I definitely try to stay away from very specific hotbed spots that, are going to make me stand out a little more.
Paper-wise, forget that. There's digital all the type. There it is. And I'm also very curious. You said traveling alone. You prefer that. Why is that?
Well, it's not that I like both, but first of all, for me, the traveling alone aspect kind of went hand in hand. A number of years ago, I started learning Mandarin Chinese. And I found that having people with you when you try to travel and you're trying to do that immersion, you end up spending half the time speaking English again back to everybody when you're just trying to nonstop 24 hours, 7 days a week, speak nothing but, that language. And I found a week or two there speaking the language and not really speaking much English was better than, say, 6 months of me having a tutor here, and a couple hours a week or something. But then I also feel like you're spending half the time reteaching all your friends the basic phrases, and then they're messing it up. And, you end up spending more time kind of being their little teacher, their little helper, than you would, just focusing on your goal, focusing on what you're trying to do. And for me, I found that better. Maybe different for other people, but specifically solo traveling to China for me was better. As far as going to other countries, I do go to Cambodia a number of times. My wife is actually Cambodian. And, I just I'm along for the ride. I just kind of listen and, I get the crazy, white guy, he's got lots of money routines that they give me and they try to cheat me out of money, but that's it.
Do they come up to you asking for signatures?
That is mainly in China and in Shanghai and Beijing. My wife actually went with me to Beijing the first time I went. And I would say pretty much every time we walked out the door, they would always have her take a picture of them with me, or just walking down the street, people are handing me their babies and then taking pictures of me with their babies. And it's kind of fun for a bit, but then eventually you're you kind of start to feel why celebrities, get annoyed because, you're like, wow, this sucks. I'm glad I don't have to deal with this on a daily basis. But, and you do get a lot of the scams. They see you as a target for, scamming, and you get the cute girl that comes up to you wanting to, oh, you want to go to a tea house, you want to do this, they basically want to get friendly with you, and then they take you to somewhere and overcharge you. So between that, and if you sit down in any of the tourist spots, you're going to get loaded with pictures. I found that it does get a little draining. But I found when you go to the smaller cities, the lesser known ones, they don't bother you. They tend to give you that kind of weird look, like, what's this guy doing here? But then they just kind of leave you alone. And I think I was kind of guarded. Like, for example, the picture back there behind me is from Chengdu, China. And it's in the Sichuan province. And I was so guarded when I went there. And yet nobody bothered me. Nobody bothered me at all. I did, that was one occasion I was a solo traveler. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time. But one of the monuments I was going to, I ended up meeting up with a big group of Western, English-speaking people. They were from various other places around the world, but they'd all kind of got together. And it was kind of cool for the day to be their translator and go around, take them places and kind of help, go eat dinner, all that. But it was fun for a day and be that translator guy. But then at the end of the day, I like going back to my routine. But yeah, it's the music scenes, the film scenes in like China and Asia and all of these places, they're very different than the States. They're very different than the Western countries, I think, in general. Like Cambodia, for example, is very, 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 very small amounts of indie artists, independent musicians, independent filmmakers, because they don't really have a sense of copyright or trademarking or, royalties on all this stuff over there. So everybody ends up just stealing from each other and copying each other's songs, which is why most of the major artists just end up singing the same old songs, because they're not going to create anything new, because if they create anything new, they're not going to make any money off of it. But it is changing there. Asia, like other parts of Asia, like China is starting to have a sense somewhat of trademarking and royalties. And, they're definitely more of a mobile friendly. They focus on their mobile phones a lot more. So buying songs through your phone is great.
WeChat.
Yeah, WeChat's huge. But, they still they're not big on indie films. There's not a whole lot of filmmakers, doing their own thing over there.
Yeah, they loved the Warcraft film that came out like a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, China, I heard that to have some level of success there, you need to have connections in the government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all businesses, in a sense, are connected to the government. They are part of the government. I've looked on occasion just out of curiosity to see what it takes to even form a business in China, and it's, you're pretty much part of the government. I mean, you have to, so at any point they feel like this is ours, they can just take it. I mean, it's a little. They have there's good and bad. I mean, they have some cool things that we don't get to have here in the U.S. But we're getting more restricted here as well. We're dangerously close to losing our own net neutrality. So it's getting a little scary. I mean, so many people in China use VPNs to access the outside world because their news sites don't say a lot of what's going on in the rest of the world. So
Yeah, I heard in the financial world, whatever China bans, invest in that.
yeah, to an extent, but the government is also inflating a lot of their own businesses, kind of almost to the point that they're holding them up.
Yeah.
They do a lot of. Have you ever heard of the ghost cities, the ghost towns?
Oh yeah, and have you heard of the Iron Rice Bowl?
The what?
Iron Rice Bowl.
I don't believe I have. What's that one?
It's to do with the state-owned enterprises China's got over there, where it's
Okay.
essentially like a job for life kind of thing, where the steel mills operate at a loss, but because they're government-owned, they'll operate infinitum, even at a loss, purely to keep employment up.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that concept, but I don't think I've ever heard that term.
Right.
So, yeah, it is different for that. They definitely, they're just throwing money left and right at everything. But they've also made a ton of money off of all of like the U.S. and as far as distribution, product, factories, all of that. And the government's definitely eating a lot of money from that stuff. So, and now with emerging things like Bitcoin, that seems to be doing good again. They're trying to fight that off. I mean, they've tried to stop exchanges on a number of occasions, but they don't seem to fully stop it. And I feel like some of it is shifted to Korea, just to allow the Chinese to continue to be involved in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. They're exchanging using a Korean exchange at this moment, I believe. Hong Kong at one time was a superpower. But yet China is slowly stripping them away. They're turning it all into Shanghai. Shanghai, they want to keep it mainland. Like once they got Hong Kong back, they just, it's their concept. They want to make Hong Kong at a loss now because they want to bring it in. They want to leave it on the outside.
Yeah, and there's the whole kerfuffle in the South China Sea. There's the thing with Taipei, and Macau is a bit more like, yeah, sure, we're part of China, and well, a few other things, zombie banks and beyond, but it's fascinating stuff. You mentioned Bitcoin.
Yes.
I remember coming across this website, this business, I think it was called Audio Coin.
Okay.
Where it was you can encrypt your songs and the DRM through the blockchain, and the only way to access your songs and to play them is to have or own the tokens or have a membership or something with the platform, like a blockchain Spotify essentially.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called though, Audio Coin, but I'm not sure that's right.
I've never heard of that one. There's a new one practically every day. I mean, the whole concept of initial coin offerings is becoming almost the bubble in itself. As far as if you remember in the 90s, when every internet startup was coming around, they're all going IPO, and a number of those IPOs, people lost tons of money on the IPOs because they bought these stocks from these internet companies that just blew up not too long afterwards. The internet coin offerings, which are all being done using tokens through Ethereum, they are basically, you and I could just collaborate and say, hey, let's come up with a new coin. Let's pretty much use a standard template white paper, change a few things around about what we're going to revolutionize in some specific topic. I mean, your example of audio, I could come in and say, VersusMedia is now going to have a coin. I'm going to do, initial coin offering for it. We're going to help filmmakers, musicians, and yet somehow the licenses are going to be held in the blockchain. And then I come up with a white paper and say, we're going to do this over the next 3 months. We're going to raise money using an initial coin offering. And then some people hire professionals to help them with this, to the point that they pretty much raise millions of dollars and come on, say they're going to do all these things. And then once it's done, several weeks go by, they haven't heard a word from them. And then maybe for some reason, they just pull the website for it. They pull all the information for it. The email addresses for the people don't work. And, there's really no regulations right now as far as, how to track down these people and how to prove that they stole any of the money. So it's, yeah.
But you think that some of them are legit, though?
There are a number that are, yes. It's just that you've got, it's kind of Wild West right now. You've you've got the cool ones. You've got the ones who are really doing, good things. You've got your core coins, the ones that everybody knows. I mean, they're legit, the Bitcoins, Litecoins, Vertcoins, Ethereum. I mean, there's so many that are so good, yet the ones that are creating the initial coin offerings are the ones you got to be concerned about. And it's actually, I think, illegal here for us in the US to actually invest in those, but people still do it.
I know it's illegal in China. I didn't know it's in the States, though.
To actually invest money into an initial coin offering, as far as owning Bitcoins and all of that, that's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. It's basically what an initial coin offering is, as far as, no expert here, but it's basically a way that you give them money via Bitcoin, whatever you want to give them, credit card transaction, something. And then they say, you've just purchased 30 of our tokens. So then when we release our coin, your 30 tokens, are going to be worth X amount of dollars. And then boom, it's on the exchanges. You can start trading in those tokens for Bitcoin or, cash or whatever you want to use it for. So in a way, it's a way for you to kind of like buying stock before a company is public.
Yeah, pump and dump.
Yeah. So it's a way for you to have them in advance. The problem is you have these tokens for something that never even launches, and then your money is worthless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, but at the same time, it's very speculative and it's very, very Wild West at the moment. Something I wanted to say about that, but that's okay. But let's slowly wrap up the podcast, however. And what are you working on now, and what's next for you?
For me, I'm still a software developer. I still run my own company. I still have a number of clients that I'm working on a daily basis for, as far as, various software technologies. I'm still helping a lot of people launch Roku channels, Apple TV channels, and etc. And then at the same time, I'm also running my filmmusicagent.com, and I'm still licensing films through VersusMedia.com for my own Roku channel, my own Apple TV channel, and so on. And at the same time, maybe I will write another book. I don't know. Like you said, the more you start typing, the more you start thinking about other things you want to do. International travel is a means to an end for me. It's a twofold. I get to continue practicing my language skills and get better with those along the way, as well as when I go to these places, I hit up festivals. I find music scenes and people in those scenes that I want to try to help in their own. I do get involved with some of the festivals, and I do sponsor some of the festivals that I see along the way. And I hope to do that more in the next few years, travel a little more international and actually be involved in some of those, the film festivals and so on. Personally, I have some own little interests. It seems we're always evolving as people, and we always have new things that we like to do. And, I'm always considering starting up businesses in foreign countries. Like I said, I'm thinking about other things. I am getting older, and software programmers are getting younger, it seems like. So, there's so much more opportunity for offshoring these days than there once was, and it's so easy. So, hiring a guy that charges a huge price in LA isn't nearly as, cost effective as, say, hiring somebody in a foreign country. So to me, I focus a lot more on being the middleman for them. I have traveled overseas. I do know some people in some of these foreign countries. So in a way, I am doing my own offshoring for some of these companies. I do enjoy a few new things these days. I picked up making wine several years ago. I do live in California. It's great. We got a lot of easy access to wine around here. So I started visiting a lot of vineyards, learned how to trim the vineyards. I learned all the little tactics. And then I started bringing my own grapes home, crushing them at home, and doing all the process here. And now I have a ton of wine aging here. So.
Yeah, I think everyone should have a craft in some way, like how to make a table, how to brew beer, make vinegar. how to make shoes, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that as well. Wine or beer, maybe vinegar.
I say
Something like that.
some of my wines do end up as vinegar. So, I got two businesses there. So,
Mm-hmm. And,
but
or jewelry crafting, a craft of sorts. Yeah, some cool stuff. And you mentioned it's easy for people. As you mentioned the middleman bit. Object orientation can be learned from anyone can learn that really. Coursera, for example, Khan Academy, it's all online.
Right.
Anywhere in the world, arguably, provided the infrastructure's there, they can learn it.
Yeah, I know. It's YouTube is a great thing these days. I mean, my wife actually recently, we had a lock here that we couldn't find the key for anymore, and a padlock, and she learned on YouTube how to crack the padlock.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. I mean, what you can learn out there these days, and I like learning online, but at the same time, being there in person for some of these places and the scent, the smell, being around the places is so much more real than just, oh, there's a YouTube video, or oh, there's a picture on the internet. And so I think ultimately, for me, future, I'm going to continue expanding. I'm going to continue expanding myself into different areas. I think like we said in the beginning, you learn so many different things along the way, but you never become an expert at any of them because you focus so much time on each of them. And so I'm trying to nail down a few of my interests and really make those be my things that I take it to the next level. Yeah. So I see those in the next several years as my focus. I want to make sure I'm better at.
Yeah, same here. That's the mistake I was making in 2016, was all over the place, wasn't focused, too many things at once. And it was like, lost a lot of time, kind of, but it's like focusing down and down. And now I'm just ticking off certain prior commitments one by one. And it's like, great, focusing down more and more, less dedicating less thought process to thinking about the process of that or the progress. And it's like, once it's finished, good, I'll go to elsewhere. And it's like moving down slowly. And speaking of learning as well, I'm very curious. How many languages do you know?
Software or
speaking.
Oh, speaking. Okay. Well, I would say really, truthfully, just, it's English, obviously. Chinese is definitely my next one that I know quite a bit. I don't consider myself fluent because I still feel like I'm learning quite a bit. And I always feel like there's so much more to learn. I can read it, I can speak it. I can't really write it too well because there's just no time to learn all of it. But I can use my phone, I can type it, but I don't actually write it. And then Spanish, I live in LA. We got to know some Spanish. And my wife does speak Khmer, the language of Cambodia. So I do know a number of responses and things I need to know for that, but I can't speak it.
As I remember it, between simplified and traditional Chinese or Mandarin, there's like 1,000 characters, isn't there?
Well, technically, they say there's like 5,000 different characters that you should really know to really feel like you have it solid. A number of them are repeated, and a lot of times they're combined, but you kind of have to know which one goes before the other and what that means because one is before the other. But it can be a little difficult. But when I was a little boy, I tried to read hieroglyphics, and I tried to read a couple other little languages as well. I think the Viking scripts and a couple of the others. And so I think I grasped that concept as a young age to try to read these things because I can read Chinese so much better than I can speak it or listen to it.
It's crazy how they decipher the hieroglyphics. Written accounts or like they back in the day they translate it to Greek, so you can reverse engineer it, and it's like what was that? What was that? There was a strange ancient language. I think it was ancient Greek or Babylonian. I think it was. It's got like
cuneiform.
No, it's called something like hexicon A, hexicon B or something, or lexicon A and lexicon delta or something, or omega and alpha. I can't remember who it was.
Huh.
Can't remember. I remember.
There's the Phoenicians, the Babylonians. A number of them had their language, and cuneiform was one of the earliest ones that kind of looked like chicken scratches sideways, and
Might have been that one, because
yeah,
it was some German character from the 1800s that went there, and he kind of excavated it, and he kind of got the whole thing started to create modern day. I forgot what it's called, but some fascinating stuff. I think it's
yeah.
Greek. I can't remember who. No, I'm not sure. Anyway, that's okay. That's all right. So yeah. Also, I'm just very curious. When you started off as a freelancer,
Mhm.
what was the thought process behind that? What was the
Uh,
story what was the justification? What was the series of events?
it was a series of events for me. I mean, I think I always had a sense of independency. I I enjoy. I've always kind of felt like an underdog in my entire life, and I think I enjoy working with small businesses for that reason as well. But it really was a sense of this was my ticket to my future software. To be honest, I don't know if I really ever was like, I really love software to writing software. It was more of a, wow, I'm actually good at this. And wow, this is allowing me to move all over the US for startups and get to learn it, things along the way, meet new people. And the more I did it, there was always this underlying sense of, I want to be my own boss. I want to work for myself. I want to do this on my own. Can I do it? I don't know, maybe not. But then the circumstance pretty much threw it into my face anyway. And the once the companies all started laying everybody off, I'm now sitting at home and I have no job. But yet I have opportunities. Being people are calling me saying, "Hey, I need you to do this for me. I need you to that for me. Are you willing to do it? I'll pay you. I'll pay you." And it just kind of born out of that situation that I had my own business opportunities sitting around in my face. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to stick with this, because at least at the end of the day, I know where I stand. Instead of a lot of my friends were losing their job, they get hired at another job, then they lose the job again, and it just kept going that way. So I realized, though, I couldn't work for just one client as an independent, because if you work for one company too much and then that one company goes under, you're no different than somebody who worked for them as an employee.
Mm.
So I learned along the way that I always had to make sure I had a series of clients equally out there at the same time, varying levels of work. I kind of call it a wheel of services. I needed to have a number of clients all at once that are, okay, this week is this guy and another client, next week is another one, and so on, and keep that wheel turning, because if I stopped with only a couple people, I'm screwed if they ever go under. And that happened to me a few times. You rely too heavily, you're getting a ton of work, they're paying you well, why bother going with anybody else? Why bother trying to find any other clients? So for me, it really was a series of events, and I learned a ton of lessons in the beginning, series of a bunch of mistakes, how to improve, what to do, what not to do, how much faith to put into when somebody calls you out of the blue and says, we got this $1 million project we want you to work on, and we're going to start next Tuesday. You clear your calendar and be ready for us. And then you never hear from them again. And, it's kind of what do? Sometimes you had a contract and you could go try to fight it, maybe, but you would be out all the time. You needed to be working on your other customers. So I kind of learned along the way what to worry about, what to take with a grain of salt, what to even deal with as far as customers who try to blame you for things that aren't even your fault. I kind of had to learn the process, and also how to say no, because I think in the beginning you're willing to say yes to everybody who comes along because you want the work, you want the money, even if it's a small amount of money, you're willing to do it. But because you took that small contract, you missed out on somebody else who would pay you more. So for me, it was a series of time periods that I had to improve. I had a falling out period where I kind of lost a lot of clients. I think the 2008 period of time here in the U.S. when a lot of the banking and the housing market tanked, and that caused a huge problem. A number of the clients I had went under, and I had to kind of regroup, figure out new tactics, and use different methods in order to find clients. So
yeah, everything's opportunity cost, I've come to realize.
Yep.
But Ryan,
yes,
it was great having you on the show. What are the best ways for the audience to get in touch with you?
For starters, you can go to my website, ryanvinson.com. That's me personally. And then I have my business website, VersusMedia.com. That is where I handle all my entertainment related as far as licensing films, licensing music videos. Filmmusicagent.com is where musicians and filmmakers can connect with each other. And then if you're just really, really, really interested, you could buy my book. That'll give you some stories that some of which I touched on, some that I didn't touch on, but about all the things I've learned along the way, which is quite a bit, and I hope to keep learning more.
That's cool. Shorten the learning curve and learn from other people's mistakes. Ways the way forward.
Yes.
But Ryan, it was great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen at home, if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button, follow, because either way, there's so much more content to come. You ain't seen nothing yet. You see, because this channel is all about helping you become a remarkable entrepreneur. You see, in this life, we can do so many things with our time and energy that we have. I recently got an extension for Google Chrome where I can see on average how many days of my life I got left. 19,000, just about 19,500 days left. And it's like life is all about opportunity. So go out there today and do something remarkable, because that is what it's all about. How cool is that? It's very cool.